Okay, thank you so much. So, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining our webinar late in the afternoon today. I see some good numbers. So, today we're really excited to present this webinar for all of you. You've heard us talk about this social innovation platform approach. And really, what this is you all who are here today, all of you are part of the development world, you're part of the development sector, you are project managers, you are working on a project, you know very well what the context in which that you work with, you have your donors, there's a set way that we are all working. We have our log frames, we have our baselines, we have targets to deliver, and we have interventions to design that are pre-agreed. And so we move forward. But we have seen very much, we've all experienced this, that sometimes the interventions that we have are inflexible. And the pace at which that we need to change our response is mostly not fast enough. Also, you would have all experienced during the time of COVID how we had to respond to a largely unknown challenge with consequences that are extremely unknown. There's no data. There's nothing except for stories and experiences that people have that you need to sort of start developing your analysis on. There are potential hypotheses that academics and scientists are putting out there based on which you have to currently develop your responses. Um, and many people would say that you've kind of lost control over the way that you are designing your programming, but largely a lot of the development challenges are just as complex and just as unknown and just as uncertain. It's just that we have created these very rigid design mechanisms that turn them into a very linear process and dangerously reduce the problem. So what we end up doing, where there's a large system of issues and complex relationships that are interplaying, we sometimes through our project design end up responding to a single problem and have a single solution. So in order to find a better model to be able to address complexity and uncertainty and to be able to um, move faster in an agile way, and also work with a range of different partners. That is the government, that is the private sector. Also make sure at the same time that the community, the grassroots community, is being involved right from the beginning. We need a different design model. And currently, our current design models ends up having our time spent more on working with the donor at the expense of the narratives and the real experiences that are emerging from the field. So in the approach that we are sort of proposing today and introducing today, the social innovation platform approach, essentially it is trying to address all these bottlenecks that the linear approach presents us. And right now, the executive office, UNDP Global, is piloting the social innovation platform approach in a few countries, and Pakistan is one of those few countries. And basically, the task we have been given is, can we prove this approach is far more effective than the linear approach? We have just sort of gone through the sort of completed the first stage and we're moving forward. But we are doing this also in partnership with our project teams. We have had DPU involved. We have also had ECCU involved. We are in talks with the youth team. But now, as we move forward, we will need to scale this approach. We will need to sort of invest in the portfolio that we are proposing. But also at the same time, we want to mainstream this social innovation platform approach in our other programming. And we have plans to do that with other projects. But one key takeaway and action point that I urge all of you to take forward and discuss very seriously is how can we use this approach in your programming? Again, this is something that UNDP Global wants to do and wants to move forward on and wants to use a lot of. So it's going to come back to haunt all of us anyway. So start thinking of entry points. There will be clinics also, so we will have bilaterals with all of you if you are interested to really see how we can support this and mainstream this further. I assure you, it is a very interesting approach. What I'm seeing so far is very, very interesting, and the fact that we can use stories from the field and use that as part of our program design is quite incredible. So with that, I would like to introduce today the partners. We've been working with the regional bureau on this, but the partner who is really our technical guiding star, our Northern Light, is ALC. And we have today Itziar Moreno, who's the scientific director at ALC, and she's really been a real mentor to our team. And we've got Danny Lesa, co-founder of Imago Gastronomy Lab, who has created the gastronomy portfolio for us. And of course, our project team at the lab, Javeria Masood, who's the head of solutions mapping, and Ehsan Gul, head of experimentation. And of course, all of this is being facilitated by the fantastic Tabinda, who is our comms and knowledge lead here at the lab. So I'm going to hand it over to Javeria. And thank you all once again for joining.
Thank you. So I think we can just dive into the concept of how exactly we're using social innovation platform. What does it actually mean? So we're trying to what we've highlighted in Daily Baltistan area, and the idea is to address some of the socioeconomic challenges, especially now because of COVID. There are certain discrepancies and disconnections and changes that that locality has faced and how it is impacting their economic growth. And the work had actually kickstarted well before COVID. So we'll take you through what that journey was. Can you go to the next slide, Tabinda? Yes, thank you. So essentially, this approach is very integrated and it's very participatory. And what it means is that you work with a number of stakeholders that are not just, it's not just quantity that you get a large number of people, but it's also about the diverse backgrounds, the diverse genres that they work in. Then, of course, the methodologies that you work and the kind of interventions that you do. So it's basically ensuring that you're not doing single point work, but that it is multilateral and multi-sectoral in nature to address challenges and approach them in a very systemic way, so that what we propose doesn't just state something temporarily or doesn't improve the state at a very surface level, but that we go deeper. And if you want to understand the process deeper, then you have to listen deeper. So essentially, the four core buckets of this work is deep listening, co-creation, developing a portfolio, and then actually creating that portfolio. So deep listening really is, ethnographic observation and tools to engage with community. And we'll take you through this journey as to what it means. And I do want to emphasize on the idea of co-creation, because so every single aspect of this work that we've done was co-created, either with partners or with community or with both, well, mostly with both. And then we've developed a portfolio. We'll share some of that with you as well. Can you go to the next slide? So this is a very quick overview and essentially a timeline of what our work looks like and where we started from. So from the get-go, we actually did have communication within country office to get people on board and create certain task forces and have introductory sessions. And then we started framing the problem. So what we did was we reached out and we identified a few people within our teams who are either from that area or around or have largely knowledge of it. So with that team, we did initial, analysis, and then, Baldasan Foundation, we have our team from there joining today as well. They had already done a set of 100 interviews, which were done in person. And so we analyzed that. A couple of other things that I want to highlight on this timeline is that on and off, we kept engaging with different partners to ensure that our work is not done in silo, and that this new approach that we're bringing in is both internally and external platform approach. So I can now take you through the deep listening activity. So essentially what it means is that why it's called deep listening is that it's not just based on a conversation, as in me asking a question, how your day went, and you taking me through that, but it actually is me being more observant. So listening to the person, but also understanding what the context they're coming from in, what is the culture, what are the influences, what are the barriers, what are the conformities, what how are they behaving in their space, what is it that they're not saying but I can pick off. So basically there is a huge set of information that you get when you are very deeply listening, and we actually planned to go out in the field and do this work, but COVID happened, so we had to pivot our approach. We still wanted to have strong information channels with the community, but we were not able to do that in person. So then we relied a lot on digital mediums. So we translated all of our queries, all our questions, and all our asks into a digital or tech-based product. So we used IVRs, we used robocalls, we used actually a call center to make a lot of calls and record it. There were blast SMSs, and then all that information came to us, and then we analyzed it. So one other thing is that when we were actually designing the questions, and they were not going to have that humane sort of angle to it, then it also incorporated a lot of behavioral insights work and frameworks to ensure that we don't miss out on a lot of things. So that's the gist of the deep listening process. And then it gave us a huge set of hypotheses. Can you go to the next slide, please? So what we saw was a lot of thematic areas emerging. Community highlighted a lot of concerns. Some were shared by a very small group, and some were largely, shared. So certain thematic areas started emerging. We identified few trends, like there was a huge reverse migration because of COVID. Essentially, people from that valley had moved externally to other cities, a lot in Islamabad actually, for work and education. But then because of this, they had to move back. So what does that look like when a large chunk of population comes back and the economic growth isn't as much to accommodate that? Then of course, what other areas that came up was, the huge potential of tourism, food industry, then healthcare. There's a need for healthcare. There's a need for more stronger understanding in educational skills. So a lot of thematic areas emerged. And then we identified one of the huge theme that was coming again and again, and that was gastronomy. So largely the about 400 plus people who we listened to, what they highlighted, in addition to that, our own analysis, that actually yielded a lot of information that directly corresponds with the food system. Majority people are associated with that in their work streams, as well as social engagement, whether that is in growing food, producing it, storing it, cooking it, or selling it. So there's like a strong overlap of it. And then certain things that came up, can you go to the next slide? We also used actually a lot of, we listened to a lot of personal narratives. And what you see on the screen right now is something that came up a lot in our portfolio development, and we have later slides to, go deeper into that. Some things that I can maybe highlight here is that there is very strong opportunity, different projects within country office to work on this with us. For example, there is a huge space for youth training. Maybe that's something that we can do with the youth program. Then there's also a lot of tourism related work that again is very relevant. I mean, we recently had tourism pods, and there's that work in Savat and another area, so maybe that can expand. Then there's a lot of areas here that are directly linked with environment, the sustainable environment footprint. So that's another area for ECCU to maybe jump in. So we can discuss that later. But I'll maybe now in the next slide take you through a quick snapshot of what the system actually looked like and how we looked at it in detail. So essentially we started mapping out geographically where and to what extent all of that was expanded. What is the impact of the annual calendar on it? What is the role of women? What are the cultural nuances within it? How do families interact? What role does growing food mean? And what are some opportunities that we can use from here, leverage on, and create a larger economic push? And we'll share all of this in detail with you guys as well, and how food is again linked to so many other industries like healthcare, tourism, education, urban development also, and how can we now try to take a more streamlined direction into what our work leads to. Maybe at this point I can hand it over to Itziar, who can come in and explain more about what we did, how we did, and where does the portfolio draft come from.
Thanks, Jabiria, and thanks, Finish, for the opportunity of being here today. If we can go to the next slide, I will try to be brief, although it's something that I'm struggling with. I will be summing up the points that Jabiria has just made. What have we done so far? We've been engaging because this is the basis of the approach. This is a bottom-up approach based on different elements that are iterative and that are based on two different things: the community listening process as a basis for building the portfolio, and the portfolio approach in which we tackle different levels of impact. So very briefly, I just wanted to say that the local, even though we have been working with this in the last, I would say, 6 to 8 months, it's not. It hasn't been a long period of time, and we have had many COVID restrictions, not only for us, of course, but also for the UNDP country office, and we have relied a lot on local support with people on the ground. So that's made our work a lot easier. We've been engaging many different people, mapping which are the different stakeholders in the Husha Valley and the Baltistan area. What are the key initiatives happening, not only in the food system, but other initiatives that we could connect to the portfolio as well. We have been listening, and this has taken many different paths. We have been doing field interviews with people pre-COVID and post-COVID with ethnographic tools. We have been doing robocalls. We have been doing digital listening. From all of that, we have done an analysis of patterns of perceptions, patterns of narratives, to understand better the cultural dynamics and the context in which we will be developing this portfolio approach. These are the personas that Jabiria just showed. Each of these persona is supposed to be reflecting a narrative and something that could be, I will go a little bit, I will be more brief. Each of these personas will be addressing one of the segmentations of information that we have discovered, and even if they are contradictory between each other. So this gives us a lot of options in terms of developing this portfolio. We have been mapping, analyzing, and documenting, and we have identified these meta narratives that I was talking about. So the two key elements of this approach would be be to link all of these meta-narratives with the actions that we will be taking, thus incorporating the cultural element into the whole innovation process, and the interconnection of the existing narratives and the new narratives between each other, tackling 5 different levels for systemic impact. It's not, even if we are talking about the food system, we cannot only create community actions or small levels, startups or large scale actions or public services. We have to experiment with all of them at the same time, and also create the regulation structures that allow us to experiment in this way. So for that, and please take into account that this is something we have to consider in the longer term, but at the same time we have to find the balance between having something tangible that pushes the platform forward and the longer term perspective. And this is where Imago comes in. We have a series of mappings of the areas of the food system. We have a small understanding about how it works, about the necessities, about the meta-narratives operating about that, but we are not able to co-create new actions in the short term. So we have the opportunity draft identified, we have the testimonies that we have gathered, but we need to create an initial portfolio of actions at different levels. This is not just a portfolio, because this has become nowadays a buzzword. Everyone talks about portfolios, but we are super annoyed with that. We always repeat that, but a portfolio approach does not equal a systemic approach if it's not responding to the meta-narratives, to the listening process, and it's not connected to the social dynamics that are operating there. So in order to create this, and this is the first step of a longer term approach that we have managed to design, we asked our colleagues in Imago. They are global top chefs that have been awarded with Michelin stars and have I would say experience in systemic transformations on the food system and overall, which is not it's a rare animal to find. So we asked them to collaborate, and UNDP was keen to allow this into designing a series of initiatives that again are tackling this different at least 5 levels of impact that are going to have a proper, again, impact in the system, that are addressing the meta narratives and the social dynamics that we have identified, diverse, even contradictory between each other, and that are of course interconnected with each other. So I will give the word now to, and apologies if I extended myself too much as usual, I will give the word to Danny, who will explain a little bit more about this first initial portfolio that is going to be the basis of all of the actions that we will have in the longer term, and that has a structure of new lines to develop, a series of prototypes that they have identified, reading the whole information from the listening process that we provided us, which is not something so common, and incorporating some of the actions, not that many, but some of the actions that were responding to the social dynamics that we have identified and that are working right now. So we are incorporating them into the portfolio. So with further ado, I will give the word to Danny, who will explain a really cool infographic that we've done to present this portfolio. Thank you.
Hi, how are you? Good morning from Basque Country. Good afternoon for you. Yeah, first of all, I would like to thank your invitation to participate in this incredible challenge that is transforming, let's say, Gilgit-Baltistan economy, socio-economy. So first of all, maybe just briefly, I would like to introduce ourselves. As Itziar said, we are nothing but chefs, and it's a little awkward for us to be participating in this project, since, okay, as chefs, we are normally allowed to cook, nothing but that, but we need to cook with something, and we need to cook for somebody. So as she was saying, and as Javeri was saying, I think this project is a bottom-up project. That means that we need to engage the basis to go to the pyramid. And in our case, at least in the Basque Country, the restaurants, and in this case, fine dining restaurants, are in the top of the pyramid. So let's say that many people is looking at the restaurants, how they behave, how they empower trends, and how they keep people doing new things and new stuff around food. But we need to confess that for us to be guiding or leading this kind of gastronomy, it's a complex work, since we need to engage the base of our food system. So that's the logic we have applied to this work, in order to see whether in Gilgit-Baltistan, and it is, of course, there is enough strength to take this base to the top. Okay, that would be a very long project, as it was in the Basque Country. It took a minimum of 40 or 50 years. But we'd like you to understand that the chefs have been working on understanding the basis of Gilgit-Baltistan. We can do nothing but to thank Javeria, Esan, Itziar, Tabinda, everybody, and Benish, since they have supported us with the best information they had. It was incredible to be introduced to your society, in order to understand how people think, the aims of the people, the goals for the people, and how this COVID is affecting to that area. And we can say nothing but that there is a big power in there, so many things could be done in there. And as they helped us, as Itziar, Javeria, and all the people helped us applying systemic approach, it was incredible to see how many things can be done in the area in order to improve the socioeconomics of the area, just from the food system map. If we apply more systems, that would be amazing. But in our case, we need to tackle it from the food perspective. As you will see, if we go one backwards, is it possible? Okay. Here you can see that we have chosen from the narratives and the meta-narratives, like 6 overarching work streams that you can see there, like redesigning the cereal production, redesigning the local poultry farming, the dairy company cluster development, Baltic greenhouses, livestock breeding, and Karakoram tourism system. Those are the conclusions we have reached once reading all the narratives, since we have seen that there is a big strength in this food map, okay? But as they were introducing the idea, we cannot think about them one by one, but as a system, since they work all together. If you come to the Basque Country and you see very good primary sector, secondary sector, or third sector, is because they work all together. And we have good restaurants, at least in the case of the restaurant, because that very base is very well organized and they are engaging all together, okay? So we cannot think in all of them one by one, as I said, but in a total, as a systemic approach, okay? If you go to the next one. Okay. Once we have in the left side the overarching work streams, let's say, we have thought about, as Itziar was properly saying, a portfolio of ideas that you cannot understand one by one. But if you think on the serial-based, let's say, project, from that very prototype, you can think on a pasta plant that could perfectly fit in producing your own cereals, okay? But from your own very cereals, you can feed the livestock, and from that livestock, you can feed your stores, your groceries, your butchers, and your restaurants, or any other, let's say, item in that complex system. So it's very important you to see how they are connected in between all of them, okay? If you go to the next slide. Okay, so as you can see here, they always work in a network. So I was wondering before tackling this very meeting how to explain how all of them are connecting. If you see here in the top right side the dining experience in cabin network, that is nothing but offering the tourists that are going to the area some singular experiences in houses or INNs. That would be incredible. But in the case, if you got, let's say, enough wealth or richness around to show or to share with the tourists. So that means that if you got your own cereals, you will produce your own pasta plant with your own Karakoram appellation of origin. You will have a store or municipal food market on which this dining cabin will buy the product, and you will finally share it with the tourists that are coming there. So one by one, they do not make sense, that big sense. But if you put all together, you are creating a map or a system that is strength. Okay. If you go to the next one, okay, here maybe it's here. You can help us to explain, since we have worked on the prototypes. Here you can see how they behave in terms of how they affect community initiatives, small and mid-scale initiatives, large-scale initiatives, services, and regulation, as you can see in the left side in the bottom. So it's here. If you want to explain how this information is organized, that would be very helpful.
Thanks, Danny. Yes. What we can see here is fancier way to explain all of the work that Imago, UNDP, and ourselves have been doing. In the case of Push Valley, we found that some of the initiatives, some of the designs from the Imago team were not only tackling one, but two or three impact levels at the same time. So we decided to do this more miscellaneous, if that is a word, and create different ways to visualize this. We managed to do this, and we think this works because we have the, as you can see, the overarching work streams related to cereal, related to poultry, to tourism, to dairy products, etc. And we can locate each of the prototypes that you can see there, not only the pasta plant, but also the caviar from the Balti area, many different, the dining experiences, the education exchanges, many of the prototypes that we have. Again, we could not go all day, but we could have 100 prototypes. But this is a selection of the things that that we think it's or it could be ready to be prototyped and tested in the area in this in the next few months. The idea is that, of course, not all of them. If we have this series of prototypes, not all of them will work perfectly. But that's not the logic of this process, of this social innovation platform process. If half of them work properly and can be scaled, then we will iterate this and do this systematically and contrast with local communities to see what kind of new prototypes we could add to this portfolio. This is not something that is closed, and this is not something that is that in the future we could do portfolios related to the food system but also to education, health, and other areas identified. So in this list, you can find the many, I would say, cool prototypes that everybody loves the pasta plant. I'm not sure why, but everybody loves it. But also, as you can see, we are tackling here not only community projects related to tourism, not only small companies or large scale initiatives that are tackling, private public sectors and others, and also new services related to the food system, but also the regulation part, like we could create the conditions for this portfolio to develop, and also experiment in a smaller way, like denominations of origin of the amazing products that the local people have identified and wanted to add value to. And you can see there, because we should never forget that we are always addressing the needs and opportunities identified by people in the area. So these are, we give them faces, we sometimes give them names, but these are just 8 perceptions, 8 patterns that we have found from the analysis of narratives. This does not mean that if somebody thinks that education or women are not properly being involved in these processes, this is not just necessarily the perception of women this age, but also could be the perception of anyone, really. So again, we use this as a tool to kind of create new prototypes, new potential new points and elements of the portfolio, but always the one condition, not the one, but the key condition is that they need to be addressing at least one of the narrative patterns of the social dynamics that are operating in the area. When we did the mapping of initiatives, we could very easily see, compared to these patterns identified in the listening process, what initiatives were not responding to these perceptions and narratives, and which ones were working mostly because they were connected to the social dynamics. These are the ones you can see in black dots and a little bit bigger, because these are initiatives that are already ongoing in the area. We are not just coming here and creating new things, but we also want to take advantage of the things that are working and responding to the social dynamics that we have identified during the listening process, and add them into the portfolio, and to see if we can scale them up, add them to the set of actions that we will be conducting and funding, and thus making them possibly stronger. Another thing, and you can see there the SDGs, it looks like there's all of them, but it's actually not. There are a couple missing, but these are the SDGs that, and we are working with UNDP, but even in the processes that we are not working with UNDP, use the SDGs to kind of like another kind of condition for their portfolio to develop. And as you can see here, even though we are tackling the food system, we can or we are focusing on the food system as an entry point for a scalable social innovation platform and systemic transformation of a valley that is in need of this systemic transformation. Even if it's just food system, we are tackling poverty, we are tackling gender equality, we are tackling industry, we are tackling environment, jobs, even peace building, because this is the example in Pakistan, but we are applying this again with Imago. We are applying this very same process in another place in southern Thailand, in which a violent conflict is happening, and food has been identified as a way of tackling complex issues like this, like peace building, but also air pollution, future of work. All these I would say complex issues that we are facing could be addressed, or at least start to be addressed by the redesigning of the food system, and then scaled up. So this is the representation of the first, I would say, set of initiatives that we will be hopefully developing in 2021. And just as as a curiosity, you can find them local energy snack bars, taking advantage of the nuts growing in the area. Many fruit-related products, because they have amazing apricots there. Many education, regulation, the caviar and the pasta plant. Even international exchanges of states, and education with the network that we have here. So again, this is the starting point, but we are really really excited about this, and we are super thankful to UNDP and the Accelerator Lab team that has allowed us to work in this way. And it's not called and it's called Accelerator Lab for a reason, because we started this I would say 8 months ago, and it is true that we have contacts in the area, in the local communities. But again, with the pandemic, I think it's very remarkable that we together have been able to reach this, and really looking forward to see this portfolio developing. That's it from my side.
Okay. Thank you, Itziar. Thank you, Danny. And we're equally excited to work with you guys. Could we move on to the next slide, please? So nothing comes without challenges, right? So you would have seen that there was an XX.00 sign behind each of the prototypes. So we are resource confined. We have to look for resources within our UNDP system, in the private sector, likewise into the government bodies, really looking for those opportunities and those nuggets of funding available out there to help prototype in those areas. And not necessarily all 20 prototypes will be funded for, but at least we can begin with, as Itziar mentioned, while explaining that diagram, that even if you're able to pick onto the ones which have, let's say, overlapping impact on community level to regulation to other 5 levels, then we will be able to generate that systemic impact. Alongside with that, we need to, because of COVID-19, we cannot say that we had 100% clean mapping exercise already done of all the existing actions happening in these prototyping stages, right? For instance, if we say uh, something around walnuts or something around apricots, but maybe it already exists, maybe it's a grassroots level innovation already happening. So we need to go and do a little more dig down those kind of nuggets of prototyping happening in terms of the mapping exercise, but not just limited to the solution providers, but also to the champions within the government bodies as well as in the private sector, whom we can identify and reinforce our actions upon and work with them. Similarly, a lot of this has to be stress tested, right? We have to, let's say, Danny, as a Michelin star, does believe that pasta plant is something which would work, or maybe that is what they have found through the narrative. But if we take that idea to the locals and they say that might not work, that is of concern to us, and we need to stress test it, right? We have to let's say, carry our vulnerabilities in this process to that community to either rip it apart or work alongside, right? But this also is not just the community, but also the academia sector, civil society, public sector, as well as bringing them in to create a more sustainable plan on how to take these prototypes beyond just the experimentation realm, but also to scalability. And similarly, a lot of this depends on co-creation with the community. We sitting here in Islamabad or wherever you guys are cannot decide the fate of that community or create a pasta plant and tell them and say, okay, now we're going to employ you. It has to come with the buy-in has to come from within the community. Hence, we need to create this culture of co-creation and bring those people at the forefront of the programming. Could we go to the next slide, please? So a lot of this is already what I've said, but the idea is to stress test this. Javeri and I plan to meet our colleagues in Baltistan through our Baltistan Foundation, the amazing group here already listening to us today as well. So our idea is to go and meet them and go alongside with them to all the right stakeholders, such as the community, government partners. Let's say we identify some private sector partners to double check the portfolio with them to see if there is an appetite, and then create this co-creation layer, maybe through innovation challenges, maybe through a call out for community to come together, maybe a focus group discussion happening with them, or just by uh, teasing out some of the mechanics of how we are going to do it, people might respond, right? But that's also something which we're going to test. And that's the beauty of this process, that we are in an experimental setting right now. Similarly, to our colleagues listening from the country office, we're very much looking forward to how you see partnerships and connections in the country office. My colleague Javeria did mention about how we see training of youth groups is something which can come forward. Similarly, with our tourism programming, especially with the environment unit as well as the crisis prevention unit, we do see an overlap. But that is something we want the units to identify those anchor points, and maybe we can park it for our discussion today, as well as Beanish mentioned, that we will be having clinics, especially for each of the units as well, so that we can go deeper and identify those connections. Likewise, we wish to create an investment fund where we loop in private sector and other traditional partners, because this is beyond one person's scope. Because of the large scale projects and the projects, we would be needing funding that way as well to create that systemic impact. We can do those smaller prototypes for service delivery or regulation or help with that, but for those meta ones, we would need resources like that. Similarly, we are working with the SDG unit, the Sustainable Development Goals unit by the government there in Gilgit-Baltistan, to help for agenda setting as well, for food economy to come towards the center of this, right? Similarly, this is the food economy as an example we've been using, but social innovation platform at itself as an approach is something which is of interest now to other colleagues at country office as well. For instance, we're working now with SDG unit Sindh to look at data ecosystem in one part of the country, where UN agencies are coming together to identify the loopholes and listen to themselves alongside with the community and government partners to identify how we can fix the data ecosystem. So you see, somewhere we are fixing the economy using these infrastructural challenges and all these new ideas around regulation and all those initiatives. But likewise, we are looking at a softer problem as well, which is data ecosystem management. So that means that SIP as an approach can have varied, let's say, it can be applied on varied set of problems as well. I'm mindful of time. We have just 10 minutes left. Let's just open it for questions and answers and discussions. Maybe I can throw one question here for the larger audience, especially to the country office colleagues. Do you see any overlaps with your current work, or do you see uh, any anchor points within, let's say, for the future programming which you're thinking of doing? Thank you. And you can raise your hand, unmute yourselves. It's very open space right now.
Ehsan, can I have a question, please?
Yes, please. Go ahead.
Well, first of all, thank you very much for this exciting presentation. Of course, I just want to clarify, first of all, that if I have got this right, because this is a new thing happening, and perhaps this is the best platform to clarify if I'm getting it right. Within development programs, within development thinking, we already have models where quantitative approaches have been merged with qualitative approaches, and these focus group discussions, ethnography, are nothing new. To me, sounds that in this age of digitalization, digital transformation, the added advantage of this social innovation approach is to leverage technology and to bring out data and then create graphs and then create something that can create a robust evidence. But at the same time, I'm thinking, if we take the example of Gilgit-Baltistan, we have development players like Khan, Rural Support Program, very well embedded and working in that area. And as if we talk to the locals and go to the focus group discussions and key informant interviews, you get to the heart of the problems very quickly. So I'm just wondering, I'm not challenging, but for my own understanding, is this all evidence that we create through data and through leveraging technology is to attract foreign funding or to attract the people who are outside immediate environment, or who are the donors and the larger outer audience? Because if we think of the local people and the local organization, I just gave one example, which I know for sure, Khan Rural Support Program or Khan Foundation, which have been there for long. So because those local organizations have very, very in-depth understanding because of their presence over there. So that is the first question, if I can get your insight or anybody can explain me. Thank you.
Javeri, you want to take it?
Sure. I would say that, well, thank you so much for listening and bringing this point up. I think that that's very important. I think that the intention behind the work is not to start with, asking for funding or attracting, donors for funding. It's just that we heavily believe in the process. And you're absolutely right. A lot of this might be familiar, but I have yet to see that. So we have spent so far 8 months on this, right? And that is how long processes take. I don't think that the way that development has been happening is open for these kind of processes, because they are looked at as something that's very different from the work. So our attempt to unpack how we have worked is to create some kind of an overlap and familiarity of the concept with, either existing work or upcoming. So again, the intention is not to attract funding, but you are restricted when you have to go on field and execute work. So all of the thematic areas that we're seeing now emerge that my colleagues have shared, they all require some kind of funding, even if even if the work is at a very experimental stage, very small intervention. So you do need resources, and that resource doesn't always mean that you need heavy money. It also means that you can find the right kind of partners who are invested in that area, who are interested in expanding their work in the direction that both of us will share. Another output is that all of the intelligence and all the insights and findings that we're now gathering, we want to make it public. So anyone who is, whether government or private or both, are interested in taking any of these portfolios forward, whether that is a pasta factory or expansion on the cereal work or expansion on the way that they store food. So I don't want to go too much in detail right now, but the intention doesn't start with gaining money, but you need resources to execute work. B, it is very crucial for us to understand the value of the process and the insights that it yields, and how that then benefits not just our portfolio, but a lot of other programs. So for example, now if Laura and her team want to start with the green jobs and interconnect that here, a lot of the legwork is already done. So they actually end up saving their money and resource that they would have otherwise to do, I don't know, a baseline or XYZ. So that's how I'm looking at it. I don't know if anybody else wants to add something here.
I see Venus, your hand raised. You want to attempt to answer this question or any other question?
And I think Itzia also should come in because I'm sure she knows how to answer this question. But I really liked this question because this question needs to be asked and it needs to be responded to, because I've received this question from many other colleagues also. And the way I also see it, yes, ethnography is not new, participatory development is not new, area development is not new, doing projects and working with private sector also is not new. What is new in this approach is the way it's all coming together. It's not just doing quantitative, qualitative work and then designing one intervention. We are promoting to design many solutions together. We're bringing these design processes together. We're bringing in all the different partners. So these are not separate projects. These are coming together in a particularly non-linear way. That is actually the difference. It's how we have, I guess it's like you have the same ingredients, but we've made a different dish out of it. But I'm going to give it to Itzia because I'm sure she also wants to answer this.
Yeah, thanks, Binish. Exactly. I totally agree with what you just said. There's nothing new about the approach that we are presenting. It's the way we understand the bottom-up logic, the way we understand a portfolio, the way we understand the listening and the participatory process, which makes it different. In any case, this is again addressing a systemic transformation of a territory. So there is nothing, I would say, wrong with the way that other, single point projects are funded. We have a lot of money, we fund them, etc. That's always going to happen. The social innovation platform logic is otherwise, it's another one. So what we are looking here, and this is why we have invested so much time to understand the social dynamics and to reach this portfolio, is to work in an integrated way, not to work in single point solutions, unicorns, as I was telling you, as I was writing on the chat, that will somehow, or I would say magically, bring together other initiatives. For them, and sometimes we have had cases here in which funding is not a problem, but people tell us, I've got funding, but I'm not sure where to put this funding. So this is not a, and in our experience, it works better if we do this social innovation platform, that if we come to Husha Valley with a bunch of money and say, okay, give me something to do. So this is supposed to be in a longer term self-sustainable. Of course, funding is going to be an issue. Of course, funding is going to be a problem. But with this approach, we are going to present this set of initiatives in which, again, not all of them need to work perfectly. Not all of them need to be successful, which also for funders mitigates the investment risk, which is a new way of funding that is attractive to donors, and it also allows different ways of funding, combining, co-investments, investments for, or taking advantage of things that are happening and funded, like the prototypes that we are going to scale up, while also funding a portfolio. So it's more versatile. We are actually, it's good you ask that, because we as ALC are working on and thinking a lot about this with UNDP, EXO, and La Caixa Foundation, which is one of our collaborators, our main collaborators, and it's a big financial institution and foundation. And they are actually thinking about how we could create the conditions and how we could create manuals and how we could think about how to fund portfolios. Specifically, they are thinking about how we can demonstrate everything that I've just said, that funding portfolios is actually better from a funder's point of view that the other way around. So I'm not sure if I explained that properly, or I just messed it up, but I hope I answered your question.
Oh, thank you very much. Thank you. This has been helpful. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. We can take one more question because I think we're past our time already. Zahir Saab, you want to come in?
Hello.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Hello. This is Zahir Abbas from SDG Support Unit GB.
Sure.
It was a nice discussion. Thank you for inviting us. So my question is related to the scalability of this intervention, this approach. Like, how do you think? I mean, is it viable for the government when it comes to scaling this intervention up in other areas, in other villages? And how cost effective would this approach be compared to the traditional approach that the government takes in planning?
Sure.
Thank you.
Maybe in terms of the spirit of experimentation, that is what we're here to tackle, right? It might work, it might not work. Hence, that's why we are calling it a portfolio of experiments, not saying solutions yet, right? So we're going to test them in the spirit that would they work in Husha Valley or not? And based on, let's say when we stress test, some of the private sector say this is not good enough, come up with something else. We go back to the community and cook up a new solution or a new intervention alongside with them, right? So that's the idea is. But one thing which as a challenge and rightly pointed out, how much is the government's buy-in while you're also planning the prototypes? That's exactly where people like you have to come in and help us. That when we come to Gilgit Baltistan, and you especially sitting in the heart of the planning and development board of Gilgit Baltistan as someone who are planning already the ADPs for the new year, already know that okay, where the funding and sources are going. So when the community's buy-in is there, let's say political leaders buy-in is there, then the private sector's engagement is also there, and UNDP is also trying to support it. I do believe there's a case for government partners to also look into them, right? And then based on the learnings we have from Hushe Valley, that the idea is that whatever that might not work in another village, it's okay, but the idea is that how we can then give a modular plan to the government that this is what worked in Hushe Valley, and this is how the impact trickles down to other valleys as well. We might not have to do a pasta plant in all of the valleys, but that could be that how it links with other valleys and the economic flows can happen on multiple sides. Anyone else wants to come in for that question?
I am concerned about time, but I was just writing on the chat, so I will just make a short comment on the replicability and scalability. Replicability is high, but we are replicating the process. We are not replicating the portfolio. This is what Esan was saying. So each of the places will have its, not its pasta plan, but these specific prototypes that we are identifying from the listening process. Like I mentioned that we are doing this with Imago in Thailand. The portfolio looks absolutely different, which is a very not similar, but also it's the same as the process to reach this portfolio. Also about the scalability, again, we could scale up the process. I mean, the portfolio and the initiatives that work well could be scaled up, could be replicated in other places in the or in different areas of the valley, not only Skardu but also other places. Like this is something that's not new, but we are always talking about scaling up the platform process to make it bigger, to iterate, and this initial portfolio, as I was explaining on the chat, is just a sample of the how the process works. So as I mentioned earlier, we need to have the balance between the longer term perspective of systemic transformation of a place and people like governments, companies and local stakeholders asking us to have something tangible because we've been talking to them, we've been creating experience. So
yeah, okay.
Sorry, I froze. So yeah, I think that this is all I wanted to say, and the rest is on the chat. Apologies for frozen. It's a university connection. Sorry.
That's okay. So in the chat, I've put our group email, so you guys can write to us. So we will then respond to you accordingly. Also, I've repasted the doodle link which Tabinda had shared earlier, which is we can have one-on-ones with you guys as well based on your needs. Like Laura has already signed up, so that's brilliant. So that means that our programs and units are responding. So please take this approach back to your teams and discuss. And we'll also be sharing the presentation for your reference as well. Thank you so much for attending, and hopefully we'll be able to transform the way we're thinking to do it in Gilgit-Baltistan. Thank you so much.